Welcome to Saurabh Kapil History Podcast.
And a very warm welcome to you all. Today we're diving into a story not of swords and shields, but of seals and trade routes. A civilization whose silent ruins tell a magnificent story of economic power.
Picture this for a moment. A civilization thriving thousands of years ago, spread across an area as vast as the Thar Desert. And yet, from one city to the next, you'd find the same pottery, the same seals, the very same bricks. So how on earth did they achieve such incredible uniformity? The answer, as Saurabh's notes so beautifully lay out, wasn't conquest. It was commerce, a complex, sprawling trade network that was the lifeblood connecting them all. So in today's explainer, we are going to unpack this ancient economy. Here's our game plan. First, we'll see why trade was literally the foundation of their society. Then, we'll get into the nuts and bolts of how they made it all work. We'll follow their trade routes right across the subcontinent and then sail with their merchants overseas. We'll also tackle the big debate about their connection to Mesopotamia. And finally, we'll reflect on the incredible legacy of this ancient trading giant. All right, let's jump right in with the absolute foundation of it all. Section 1, a civilization that was truly built on trade. That's right, Radha. Saurabh's notes really make it clear. If you want to understand the Harappans, you have to understand their economy. I mean, look at the clues here. You've got a complex social structure, a high standard of living, and those massive granaries. That's not just storing food for a rainy day, that's a surplus, that's wealth. Now you add to that the thousands of seals, a single script, and a standardized system of weights and measures. It all points to one thing, a highly sophisticated, organized trade system that was the engine powering their entire civilization. Okay, so if trade was the engine, you have to ask, what were the nuts and bolts? What were the gears that made it all turn so smoothly across such a huge area? That's what we're tackling in Section 2, the actual mechanics of Harappan commerce. And this really gets to a critical point. Think about it. In a world with hundreds of cities and towns, how do you make sure a deal is a fair deal? How do you build that trust? Which is, let's be honest, the foundation of any thriving economy. The answer is absolutely brilliant in its simplicity: standardization. Saurabh's notes describe these sets of cubical stone weights found everywhere. The basic unit was 16, about 14 grams today. Now think of this system as the umpire in a cricket match. Its decision was final, universally accepted from Gujarat all the way to Afghanistan. It guaranteed fair play in every single transaction. And it gets even better. This wasn't some random system they just came up with. As you can see, it was mathematically precise. The bigger weights were perfect multiples of 16, and the smaller ones were exact fractions. The sheer mathematical genius behind this, applied consistently over such a vast area, it's mind-boggling. It shows a level of administrative skill that was truly ahead of its time. Of course, you can't have trade without transport, and the Harappans were masters of logistics. On land, you have to imagine these long, slow caravans of sturdy bullock carts and pack animals. On the mighty Indus River, they had boats, and not just simple rafts, mind you. Some even had cabins for long hauls. And for the sea, we have these incredible little terracotta models of proper ships from Lothal. These weren't just fishermen. These were serious seafarers ready to take on the open ocean. This all brings us to the real heart of their economic power. You know, it's easy to get excited about international voyages. That's the glamorous part. But the real superstar of the Harappan economy, the one that did all the heavy lifting, was its massive internal trade network. And that's what we're exploring in Section 3. Krishna, you've hit the nail right on the head. Saurabh's notes paint this picture of a bustling, vibrant domestic market. And get this, no coins, no cash. It was all a highly sophisticated system of barter. We're talking about essential raw materials like stone and metal, but also finished goods. Think about the logistics of moving rice all the way from Gujarat to Punjab, or that high-quality cotton from Lothal making its way to the big metropolises of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. It's incredible. And this table here, this is where it gets really fascinating. This is basically their ancient supply chain map. It shows just how interconnected they were. Copper from the Khetri mines in Rajasthan, gold possibly from the Kolar fields way down in Karnataka, lapis lazuli from far-off Afghanistan. Each region had its specialty, and each was a vital thread woven into this single massive economic tapestry. And what happens when your supply chain is this sophisticated? Well, you get specialization. Just like today, we have cities famous for IT or for manufacturing, they had their own industrial hubs. You need to find metalwork? You went to the big cities like Mohenjo-Daro or Harappa. You wanted beautiful shell bangles? The coastal towns like Balakot were your best bet. And for the finest beads in the ancient world, you'd go to Lothal or Chanhudaro. It was an incredibly organized system. But the Harappans' ambition didn't stop at the borders of the subcontinent. Oh no, they were players on the world stage. And that brings us to Section 4, Harappa's Global Connections. So how do we know this for sure? Saurabh's notes walk us through the evidence, almost like a detective story. The trail starts way up in South Turkmenistan. And look what they found. Ivory dice, unique metal objects, but the smoking gun? A classic rectangular Harappan seal with its unique script. There's just no mistaking it. From there, the trail leads us into modern-day Iran. And what do we find? More Harappan seals, of course, but also something else, their beautiful carnelian beads. These reddish-brown beads, often with these lovely white etched designs, were like a signature made in Harappa label. They were a famous export, a clear sign of their presence. And remember, these were master sailors. The Persian Gulf was their maritime highway. On islands like Bahrain and Falaka, we find even more clues. Seals with that iconic bull motif, pieces of their storage jars with Harappan script still on them, and ivory objects that could only have come from the Indus Valley. It's like they left a trail all along their sea routes. But you know, it's not just about what we've dug up from the ground. We actually have written proof from other civilizations. Mesopotamian clay tablets from around 2350 BC talk about trading with a distant land they called Meluha. And as Saurabh's notes confirm, all signs point to Meluha being our very own Indus region. And you know what the Mesopotamians called the people of Meluha? A land of seafarers. It's right there, written in stone. So, we have this confirmed connection to Mesopotamia, another of the world's great ancient civilizations. That's huge. But it leads to a big question, a real debate among scholars. Just how important was this trade link really? And that is the heart of our fifth section. Right. Saurabh's notes lay out the two camps very clearly. On one side, you have the viewpoint that this Mesopotamian trade was absolutely vital, the lifeblood of the Harappan economy. So much so that when this trade declined, the civilization itself began to collapse. Then, on the other side, you have a completely different take, that this trade was actually minimal, more of a sideshow, and not at all critical for Harappan survival. So where do Saurabh's notes land on this debate? Well, the evidence seems to point quite strongly toward the second view. And why is that? Because the Harappan civilization was sitting on a treasure trove of natural resources right here in the subcontinent. They were largely self-sufficient, an Atman-Bar civilization, if you will. Their real strength was homegrown, and they didn't really need to rely on that foreign trade to thrive. So, as we come to the end of our deep dive, what is the big takeaway? What is the ultimate legacy of this ancient economic powerhouse? Let's wrap it all up in our final section. You know, the true legacy here isn't about a few exotic beads found in a faraway land. The thing that should really take our breath away is that the Harappans built a world-class, highly organized, and largely self-sufficient economy right here at home. Their primary strength, their economic genius, was focused inwards, on harnessing the immense wealth of the Indian subcontinent itself. That impressive foreign trade, it was really just the cherry on top of an already magnificent cake. And this leaves us with one last, tantalizing question that Saurabh's notes pose for us to think about. Who was running this whole show? Was this vast, intricate network the creation of highly organized independent merchant groups, like an ancient chamber of commerce? Or was it guided by the hand of a powerful, centralized state? On that, the evidence remains silent. And that mystery is what keeps us coming back, reminding us there are still so many secrets to uncover.